Hello, this is Not a Professional Baking Show, and I'm your host, Jess. This is Bagel Tips. So, a lot of people have reached out to me in the last few weeks after seeing my bagels and have wanted to know how I do it. How do I make such gorgeous looking bagels? All of your bagels have been gorgeous. They really have been. I want to eat them all. But I'm going to take you through some of the steps that I do to make sure that my bagels are as good as they can be. So here we have a cup and a half of warm water with a packet full of yeast, active dry yeast. So a packet is 2 3/4 teaspoons. I'm very lucky to still have some yeast on hand. I'm not sure how to make them with a sourdough starter, but I know that you can do it. Sourdough is a traditional bagel yeast. So if you know how to do it, good for you. I don't. So I let that sit for about 5 minutes so the yeast is nice and active. It looks like it's doing its job. But at this point, the most important step, I think, is the flour. So I use King Arthur's bread flour, but all-purpose flour also works really well for this recipe. It's fine. It probably won't be as chewy as a bagel with bread flour. Not a big deal. You're not going to know. Unless you have the bagels side by side and are some sort of super taster. Come on. But weighing the flour. Spooning and weighing the flour is super, super important because this is a really dense dough and you don't want more flour in there than you need, or they're not going to come out right and they're going to be tough. So get a scale. If you don't have a scale, spoon the flour into your cup measurer and level it off with a knife, or, if you're janky like me, use your hand. Just go for it. So I'm going to come back to you when it's time for kneading, which will be in a couple minutes. Hi everybody, so we are on the kneading step. The recipe is homemade bagels from Sally's Baking Addiction. I forgot to mention that in the first one. And if you hear a jingle jangle, it's this boy right here who is very hungry all the time and is apparently eating trash off my floor, which is great. Works out really well for us. Saves us in cat food. Anyway, so I make this by hand in a bowl. I don't use my mixer, mostly because I lost my dough hook and haven't bought another one, but also I could use the paddle. It's really just one more goddamn thing to clean, and if you want one more goddamn thing to clean, go for it. I, on the other hand, do not. So we have our floured surface, and I'm going to see if I can turn this out one-handed. Yeah. So this is pretty much just come together. And I'm going to be kneading it by hand for a while. It's usually about 4 to 5 minutes. And if you think it needs a little more kneading, give it a little more kneading. But generally, 4 to 5 minutes is good. It comes together into a nice little ball. And then you're ready to let it rise. So it's very hard to do this one-handed. But kneading is it's a real meditative activity for me. It's nice to sit here and not really have anything to do but these repetitive motions. And yeah, I know my camera's drifting. Someday, maybe I'll have a phone stand for doing these. See if I can cut that out. See if I can figure out how editing works. Don't know. If I did find out how editing works, though, you're not going to know what happened. Which is pretty cool. I dropped a bowl. That's what happened. Dropped the bowl. We'll see. So I'm going to knead this baby for quite a while with both hands. I'm not afraid of getting dirty. And then We are going to let it prove, and it will be a couple of hours between videos. All right, let's keep going. You kind of want it to spring back more than that when you poke it. Yeah, needs some more work. So we've got our beautiful dough ball that comes right back when you poke it. Time for rising. So we wash the bowl because we don't want any remnants of old flour or water getting in there, because our little dough ball is perfect just as it is now. And you want as little cat hair as possible in here. I know some's just going to get in anyway, but as little cat hair as possible. So we throw our dough ball into the oiled bowl. I just used an olive oil spray. Doesn't really matter what kind of oil you use. And give it a nice rub on the sides of the bowl. And then you cover it with kitchen towel, plastic wrap if you don't give a shit about the planet. If you are me and you are, not a professional, an old pillowcase will do. And you leave it until it doubles in size. About an hour to 90 minutes. But yeah, you just want it to double in size. So we will check back in a little bit. Like 60 minutes is a warm kitchen, 90 minutes in a cooler kitchen. Today is pretty cool. It's, gross and rainy outside. It's probably about 45 degrees maybe. That's probably being a little generous. So probably going to give it more of the 90-minute before we move on. Also, my husband has to cook dinner, so that's going to happen. All right, check in later. Welcome back. As you can see, the dough has doubled in size. And I also have a few things going here. I have a clean work surface, floured, kind of lightly, because you don't want the bagels sticking to the to your work surface while you're trying to get all stuff going. I've got a pot of water with a 1/4 cup of honey in it, on for the boil. I've got some 10 by 15 baking sheets lined with parchment, and I've got my oven at 425. 812 is the time. So we're going to do what a wise man once said, and turn this mother out. There we go. It is looking good. So on the recipe page, it says to punch the dough down. I don't do that, and I've never had a really super flat bagel like I've seen a few people have. So I just turn the bowl out and then cut it into 8 pieces. And I've got my chef's knife right here. But if you have a bench scraper or something, that's probably better. I don't, because this is not a professional kitchen. And so you take the dough and you cut it up into 8 more or less equal pieces. It's not a super interesting process, but maybe I'll be able to stitch this together with some more interesting footage. Because I learned how to edit, which was fun. Got some good editing software. All right, so these are not quite equal, but we're gonna roll them into balls and add, try to make sure that they're about the same once you're in the ball phase. All right, so forming dough balls. This is, I think, where some people struggle. So we have the dough just straight out of the container, and you don't want to work it too much because you want to keep the air inside of it and keep it nice. So you just sort of tuck under and pinch, and then you have a dough ball. so far I've got a couple, and so this one's a lot smaller. This one's definitely gonna be a lot smaller. I'm gonna end up taking pieces out of larger balls and just sort of sticking them in the middle of smaller ones and reworking them a little bit to make them all somewhat more or less even. So I think these three are pretty good. So a demonstration on how to make the bagel part, the hole. Squish the middle. Gently spread apart. I know it looks like this is huge, but you know, you use bread flour, there's built up a lot of gluten in it. It's gonna go right back into being a good bagel. It's a small hole. All right, so now these babies are ready to go in our boiling water. This is one of my favorite parts of bagel making. It is so much fun. Now, we take one bagel, pop it in, take 2 bagels, and this pot is big enough for 3 bagels. Cool. So we're going to set them for 1 minute, and at 1 minute, we are going to flip them. So the honey in the boil is a really important part because it gets kind of a sweet malty goodness into the bagel. I have run out of honey before, and when I ran out of honey, I had like maybe an eighth of a cup left, and I substituted the rest of that quarter cup in my pot of boiling water with molasses, and that worked out just fine. So other substitutions include liquid malts that you use to brew beer, but please save that for brewing beer. It is needed. Through the magic of editing, these guys are done boiling. And I've got my tongs to take them out of the water. And I just toss them straight on the baking sheet. Bagel. And you can see how much they've grown. They are so big! So big! Yeah, the water really puffs them up. And they're starting to look a lot like bagels. But Jess, when do you add the toppings? You add the toppings now. Here is our egg wash. We make sure to get the whole bagel. And we get it in focus too. Isn't that fun? The whole bagel. There we go. I'm going to make these everything bagels because I love everything bagels. So we've got our everything bagel seasoning. Very important to do this step after the egg wash, otherwise it'll be really messy and nothing will stick to your bagels. These guys have got to get flipped. Flip the bagel. All right. This is all out of focus. Yay. Put that on for 1 more minute. So you don't have any eggs. The grocery store told you to go fuck yourself, and there are no eggs. I used butter last week instead of an egg wash, and they came out great. Same golden texture, same crispy crust. So if you Google vegan egg wash substitutions, there's also like a ton if you don't have butter either. There are a ton of egg wash substitutions, so you can definitely get around using an egg wash if you're out of eggs or don't want to use them or whatever. We'll get these two plain with just the egg wash to show you what that nice golden color looks like. This guy is a little bit of a Quasimodo bagel. He's not as puffy as the other ones. He's a little misshapen. I worked the dough on that one a little too much when I was shaping. So I don't think that one's going to puff up as much in the oven as I would like him to, but we will see what happens. But the rest of these guys look pretty good. Well, the video I made of taking them out of the oven didn't come out. But here you can see my beautiful bagel babies. Even Quasimodo is beautiful. Even though he didn't rise exactly as much as his brother did. You can definitely see the big difference in their rise. Yeah, that's what happens when you work the dough too much. It will happen. And you can see the really nice golden color on these plain bagels. These were all in the oven for about 20 minutes. And they came out pretty good. I cannot wait to eat one, or two, or all of them. Thanks for watching.